Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Lovely to see you all. Welcome to the Worcester Life Stories. Hi, Sammy. It's lovely to see you, and thanks for the chat. It's a bit hard with the slideshow for me to be able to see it all the time, so I'm relying on Sheena to be able to do a bit of the chat there. So welcome to the third Worcester Life Stories platform workshop. I'm Tash Lord. I'm a clinical psychologist in our older adult mental health service as part of We Are Now, Herefordshire and Worcestershire Health and Care Trust.
I'm Sheena Payne-Lunn. I'm the Historic Environment Record Officer for Worcester City Council and co-lead.
We are now live across Facebook, YouTube and obviously on this WebEx, and for that reason we just ask for people not to share personal experiences because this workshop is open to the public and we therefore can't secure it. So just a little bit in terms of about the project. This is a joint collaboration between ourselves and the City Council. Sheena in particular, who is the Historic Environment Record Officer, or Hero as she actually prefers to be known. It's a 2-year funded project and we went live earlier this year. We've been running a number of workshops, in particular on 2 platforms, Know Your Place Worcester, which Sheena will be talking about shortly, and then I'll be giving a very brief overview on the Worcester Life Stories platform before I hand over to Rhys Thomas. Rhys, do you just want to give a wave to everyone who is part of the development team of Verse One? As well as that, later on next year, all being well in terms of thinking about coronavirus, we've got some really exciting things that Sheena will be able to tell you more about next time, which is in terms of our 3D time travel trail, which I'm particularly interested in, our museum exhibition, and there's going to be a book of Worcester memories, which is just really exciting. And as the project continues, we'll tell you more about that. So I'm going to hand over to Sheena now just to tell you a little bit about the Know Your Place platform.
So yeah, so some of you may have been at our workshop last time on the Know Your Place Worcester platform. This is another web application that's being developed in collaboration with Bristol City Council, who first developed the concept. And it's really a map-based platform where you can search historic maps overlaid with various information resources. So in particular, as part of this project, we're looking at the historic photographs, but all sorts of other resources as well. And the idea is that we'll be able to include contributions from the community and local people sharing their knowledge, their research, images and memories that they have via that platform. And that will provide a lot of the resource to feed into the platform that we're talking more about today, which is the Worcester Life Stories platform. Just one other thing on that really is that one of the ways in which we're developing the material to go onto the platform, so in particular doing things like describing the photographic images and so on, is through volunteer support. And we're working very closely with Tudor Household team on that work, and they're Changing Face of Worcester volunteers. And I can definitely see at least one of the volunteers there. Hi, Brian. So they're actually working on the descriptive content of those photos. So if any of you are interested in being involved with that, I know at least a couple of you are coming along to an informal session next Friday, just to talk about how you can get involved with volunteering to work on that content with us.
So thank you, Sheena. And just to say, the Know Your Place Worcester platform is so exciting. I've already had staff members email me saying, is it up yet? Can we use it? So I've been fielding them to Sheena. So I guess if there are things that you're interested in, just to promote really Sheena's work already, that people have been sort of seeking you out in terms of your historic collection that you've got of the 35,000 images of Worcester. So.
Yeah, certainly. And yeah. I'm skipping over things really because I want to get to the main part of the workshop, but also just to say that will include the material from the Worcester City Historic Environment Record, which is the database of all known archaeological sites and historic buildings and monuments around the city. Yeah.
So in terms of the Worcester Life Stories platform, you can see that on the bottom there. I'm just going to move to the next slide. She says, hopefully, there we go. So it's going to be hosted by the Health and Care Trust and will be in partnership with First One. So you'll see Chris and Reese are on the call with us and we'll be handing over shortly. Thank you very much to you both. I'm so excited. I've been tweeting about that. When we first thought about this project and Sheena and I were working together, one of the things that was really exciting was the idea in terms of here was a large collection of images where people would be able to easily access them. And one of the things that we spoke about was people being able to create their own life story book. So one of the main premises of the platform is, and one of the reasons that you're all here today is we're looking about how we're going to create that, what's it going to look like. But the hope is that will be something that will either be a book or a video. It will be private, okay? So it will be yours and you will choose who can access it and whether you want to share that. So I won't talk too much about that because otherwise I'm going to take Reese and Chris's information later. But as well as that, one of the reasons I'd got in touch with Sheena, and I know I've mentioned this story a few times, is I don't have her knowledge. And when I worked on a ward, we used to have a historian that would come and would talk about, I worked in the Black Country, he would come and talk about the city of Wolverhampton. And what that enabled people to do was to come together over a shared connection. It was empowering, people could share their own memories, they got to hear other people. And it really made a difference. And when this project first started, I was actually on the beg, borrow and steal, if I'm honest. I wanted someone to be able to do it for free, where you could, originally I asked you if you'd come and talk for us in that same way. But the second premise of this platform is that there's going to be accessible information packs. So you can have your own mini Sheena, if you like, that has information about photographs, it will have memories, audio, and the idea will be living at home, if you're in a care home, perhaps like me, you're on a ward, you would be able to have that pack and be able to facilitate a session where people can come together and share memories, which we know is hugely powerful. One of the things that we weren't expecting from the Worcester Life Stories platform is through the workshop, people have been talking about that ability to share and perhaps being able to come together over shared memories. And we've got Facebook groups already that people are able to do that. But one of the concerns has been potentially not always are those kind forums which enable people to be able to share what they want to. And one of the things that we're thinking about take more consideration is perhaps that opportunity to, whether that might be about sharing parts of your life one example, Sheena, wasn't it? It was about maybe key events in people's lives that they may want to share with others and come together on that. So that's something that's kind of in progress over the workshop. As well as this, and one of the things that we were both really keen about is for older people or people living with dementia, and actually looking at the research across the lifespan, there are a number of people that can be digitally excluded, and it's really hard because even our workshops are online. And one of the things that we're going to be looking at is how we enable people to be more able to come online. So working with Paul, I can see you there in terms of working with platform housing. John, I can see you there in terms of from Plus, how we can support people in terms of being able to get online and be more included. So those are just some of the things that the platform and what we're hoping to get out of the project. Now, Shirley, give a wave. I don't know if everyone can see everyone, but thank you very much. It was a very enthusiastic wave. One of the things that we're really keen about actually is two things: to make this platform as the best that we can possibly make it. We need your feedback, okay? So Sammy, funny enough, I can see you. If it's not for people like yourself that says, look, this is what's going to work for the people that I support, we're going to miss a trick. So there is a survey monkey, which Leslie and Catherine, they're in the background there, that will be sending out. We need feedback on the workshops. Are there ways that thank you very much, it's come up already. Are there ways that we can make this better? We're trying all the time. We were saying, Sheena, I didn't do video calls before coronavirus, but, it's really pushed me in terms of what I'm doing. But are there things that we can do better? So please let us know. Please fill it in. Sheena's going to be doing a little plug on her calendar. And if you fill it in, you may win one. And I tell you what, they are absolutely fabulous. So I'll let Sheena talk about that shortly. The other bit that Shirley's going to be involved in is we're really looking into the impact actually of our home, where we live, being connected to that, how that affects our well-being. So we know there's research around life story work, but this is going to focus particularly on heritage and well-being. And we were funded by Historic England in order to be able to do that, weren't we? So it's our hope is really that we're starting here today in Worcester, but that hopefully in the next few years this will be something that people will be able to take forward. So Louisa, it's so lovely to see you, because I think that's that thing of potentially it's other people saying, do you know what, this is a brilliant idea, how can we replicate that where we are? So there's the link. Sheena, give a show of the calendars, because they are impressive.
I've been showing this to anyone that will stop for long enough to look. But so we have our Worcester Life Stories calendar. So really, we're just trying to encourage everyone to fill in the Survey Monkey. And obviously, grand prize for one of you, lucky people, is one of these calendars if you fill in that survey for us. So we actually produced this in collaboration with local people. So the photographs that are included in here, there's 12 historic photos from around Worcester City in the 50s and 60s. And we shared those via the Worcester News. We've got a regular slot now in the Worcester News on a Wednesday, but also via social media. So we got those photos out to as many people as we could, and asked people to share their memories that were triggered by those images. So you'll find in the calendar we've got all these little speech bubbles, and those include direct quotes from local people in response to those images. So just a really lovely way of engaging people with more of the material and getting conversations going again. And a lovely thing to come out of it at the end. So do fill in that survey. And if you don't happen to win one, or if you just want to buy what is a Christmas present for someone, then email at the Gmail account there, and we can sort that out.
Yeah. Sammy, very good question. We should have put that on the slide. £8.99, yes. And really, really worth it. It's got a lovely weight to it, and yeah, I can't really say much more than that. So, and if need be, we are trying every which way. We can always do a drop if you were thinking in terms of for people. So yeah, just let us know. So I guess at this point, really, I need to be quiet and hand you over to Reese Thomas and Chris, who are going. So they are Verse One, our developers, and they've been working really hard in the background, taking the ideas from the previous workshops in terms of what people said that they would like, and are going to start demonstrating that and really looking for your feedback. So Chris and Reese, if I stop sharing and then hand over to yourselves, is that okay?
Yep.
Yep.
Not a problem. Through the magic of technology, we will now share. I will share my screen. Let's get this up, and hopefully that should all come through nice and clear. Brilliant. Right. Well, I think I'm initially going to make way for Chris to say a couple of words. And then I will jump in when it's time to show the meaty bits, the juicy bits. So,
right, thanks, Rose. Yeah, so we're Verse One. We do market-leading digital solutions within the NHS and social housing sectors. So We do lots of software development and implementation solutions with a real focus on user experience. So we're really excited to be involved with Life Stories. We've been sort of percolating things in the background as well as partaking in the workshops. We're really concentrating very much on trying to take account of the fact that not everyone is digital. As per Tash's point, I'm probably one of the last generations that did not grow up with the internet. Hence my books. We take account to that as much as possible. So that's really what we've been working on. So Reece, you want to skip forward quickly?
Yep.
Just so you know who we are, but been introduced anyway. That's great. I've been working with Verse One and therefore the NHS really for 13 years or so, and working with software. And Reece has recently joined us as a senior UX designer, and this is his first project and a rather nice project to get involved with, I think. So, just to give you a quick overview, what we're going to show you today. We're trying to design this so we're designing all of the user stories, and we've written a specification which outlines all the things that people should be able to do on the platform, taking into account the things that we discussed in previous workshops, like trying to make the actual platform the focus, but we've incorporated the concepts of possible sharing and stuff down the line as well. What we're going to show today is essentially some of the primary workflows to give you a flavour of how it might operate. These are necessarily wireframes. They're not exactly what it is going to look like. Essentially, what we try and do is get all of the journeys right, the user stories right, and then we sort of paint on top of it, as it were. But we want to make sure that the wall is sturdy before we do the painting. This is just an idea giving a flavour of how the platform will operate. And then we obviously welcome feedback on that. So I'll hand it to Reece and let's walk you through.
Brilliant. So let me just close that down. First of all, I'd just like to say thank you. This really is a genuinely exciting project to be part of, and my work in this portion of it couldn't have happened without the months and months of work that the rest of the project team has spent on it. So I'm just building on things that have already gone before, and I'm very appreciative of it. What I'm going to show today is, as Chris alluded to, a couple of flows and interactions of how the user of the memory book might, in their day-to-day, complete a couple of tasks, things like adding a new page to their book, editing an existing page, and then I go into a little bit more about some of the sharing options and some of the kind of bolted on value add options as well. So the first thing I'm going to bring up, if I expand this, this would be the core or the main anchor of the book. You'll see over on the left-hand side, there's a colored kind of navigation bar running down the side with some tabs. This is effectively the contents page of the book, represented in a persistent, always there side navigation. It houses the chapters, which are denoted by color. And if you can see, within the chapters, there's a further segregation of shades from light to dark, and those denote the pages within those chapters. If I can interact with these, so upon tapping or clicking on the section, they do expand. Again, this is a rough kind of mock-up animation used in a prototyping tool. Additionally, to navigate through the book, to read the page, we have nice bold, previous, and next buttons as well. And if you'll note the little white pointer on the purple tab there, that moves to kind of bookmark or indicate where the reader is in their memory book. If I open this one up, you see that this has a chapter title. So this green chapter is all about childhood, and pages like growing up, school, holidays. And then there would be additional options to reorder these pages or edit the chapter title there. So that is the animated kind of side navigation content page, kind of spread out. And now into the meat of it, really. I'm going to bring up another screen, so hopefully this expands out. So I'm going to show the first of three user flows or interaction flows. The first one will be a day-to-day action of editing an existing page, and then we'll do a new page, and then we'll see some sharing and stuff. So to show you a little more around what the navigating through the pages might look like, we have a couple of examples here. Slightly different page layouts. There's placeholder information for images and obviously placeholder information for text, because we're not bringing in the full proper information yet. This is still wireframing out the flows. Now, if I wanted to, for example, edit this page, we can go up to make changes, and it'll come up with this little pop-up. The thought process behind locking pages gives an additional layer of, I guess, security, but it's more to stop accidental changes happening. The user might be editing one page while thinking they were editing something else. And it also offers a visual cue for the user to, when they're done, lock the page, and they know that that page is finished, it's done. They don't need to worry about editing it anymore. Just helps that differentiation. So we are going to unlock this and edit it. I'll jump into the editing kind of portion. The thought process behind it is the item or element you want to edit. It's a simple tap or click to start changing that content. We don't want to overcomplicate it with too many options. You point, you tap the thing you want to change, and then you have the options. You'll see that the editable sections have a shadow around them, editable text sections, and you'll also see that we have a duplicated paragraph here. They both start, we moved in with my sister. So the bit we want to edit is this paragraph down here. So tapping on the paragraph opens up the iPad or tablet's input device for the keyboard. Well, we're going to replace that text with something more appropriate, and then we simply either drop the keyboard back down or tap off it, and then that change is made. The pages will autosave every 10-20 seconds, so that nothing is ever really lost, or there's no manual process for having to remember to save the page before exiting. We say we have an updated photo of our house. We can tap on the photo, click on the photo, and now we can replace that with another image. We're going to choose one from our device. So we fire up the iPad's library viewer, and we select the image that we want to drop over there. So that's looking much better. There's one additional thing we can do. We can open this options menu with a little cog. You'll note there's not many buttons here. It's pretty much just two. It's the finish button and the cog button. The less cluttered the interface is, the easier it will be to use. So open this up. This is where we can edit things like the page title, and we can also edit the season that this event or this page might have taken place. It's currently set to autumn, but if we set it to spring, then we have the opportunity We can just tap to close that. We have the opportunity to slightly tailor the styling or the aesthetic of the page based on the season that is chosen there. In this case, for this page layout, you can make the top a green color, or maybe put in a different subtle background image, and we can kind of figure that out as the development process goes on. So if I click finish, then it locks the page, giving that visual cue of, okay, yep, I've edited that. That's good. And then it closes out the edit mode. The shadows disappear, and we go back to read mode with the next and previous buttons there, ready for the user to carry on reading. That's the edit existing flow. If I go back to the start, we will have a look at the adding a new page journey now. So this navigation menu would be nicely animated with some kind of very subtle animations to kind of engage the user. And there's going to be these large plus or add page buttons for each chapter. And if we click that, it goes to this options page, which we've already seen. But this time we're going to input a new page title. So primary school, we're going to select autumn, and we're going to choose a different layout. This is where an additional layer of customization kind of comes into it. We're going to select article. It collapses a little bit so we can see the background layout. There will be other page layouts and page templates as we kind of grow and expand the options here. But we could select the chapter title one, but this is more of a body page, so we're just going to stick with article here. And then we just click or tap to clear that out of the way. So this is a new page. It's got some placeholder content on it, and then we can go about replacing the content and really tell the user's story by bringing in media and allowing them to type about their experiences. So the first thing we're going to do is change this top image, and this is where we can link out to the breadth of information and all the archive resources. So the users can bring in the thousands of photos that we've talked about previously. We'll do add photo from library, from media library. And then we can bring in the selection of external archives. We can search. Let's search for Millfield School, Worcester. Obviously, it will give back a whole host of different images, not the same image 6 times, but that's for kind of placeholder purposes. So the user will be able to scroll through all the images related to the search. They'll be able to select the image they want and then hit confirm, and it just drops it in there right at the top. Moving on down, we can add more media. This time, I think we'll add a video. So we can add photos and videos from the internet. And by putting in a link to a video, for example, YouTube, we do have a little a little information widget which might be able to pop up information about what is a URL, what is a link, kind of the actions of copy and pasting for the users that don't quite know that function. If we don't want it, we can delete it, but we do. It loads in a pre-streamed preview of the video, so the user knows what they're adding to the page. And again, simply hit confirm, and it drops it straight onto the page. Tapping in the caption text box, we can change that, we can update that, and yeah, that's looking pretty good. So once again, we'll hit finish, and then that locks it in, puts the padlock on, and takes you back to read mode, so the user can carry on reading. So there we created a new page. We changed the page title. We changed we set the season to add a little bit of customizable styles. And we set a layout. We chose one layout from a selection of several. And then we changed the content, added media, and then saved it. So that is that add new flow. And then there's one more section. I'll just fire this up again. And this time we're going to go on the yellow section at the top. This is worth talking through as well. The other chapters, the purple, the red, and so on, they are parts of the book. They are chapters of the book, and they have pages within them. This section is more the, I guess you could say, the administrative side, the home and the settings, and this will behave more like a standard website, or the interaction or navigation of a standard website. It'll house information such as the sharing information, but it'll also allow you access to some of the other more fringe features that are still kind of being discussed. Things like well-being and adding additional chapters and access to the front cover. Those sorts of things can be handled here. So let's just have a little look at how to share your book. So you've completed your book, you're incredibly happy with it, and then we can share it out to other people. This is always going to be slightly difficult because there's innately a sense of technological necessity, is the word. So if the user wants to share it via something like WhatsApp or via a text message, they can use the button to copy a link. That's a placeholder link, so that actually doesn't go anywhere. But they can copy the link, and then they can paste it into their messaging software of choice. Or if they have a friend or relative's email address, then they can type the email address in this box and then send it on. One of the main reasons I wanted to highlight this point was that we do have the option, I think, to really look and drill down at the validation and verification of things like, for example here, email addresses. You can interrogate the field and you can say, well, actually, email addresses do need to have an @ sign. And if the user hasn't put an @ sign in, then we can just prompt them to have another look at the email address where they have it written down or received it from, and they might just be missing that @ sign. Same with kind of .com suggests that it's they were trying to get to .com and something went awry. So adding little tips like this means that the user can reinterrogate and reanalyze what they've input, and then once those issues are fixed, it's green across the board, and then they can hit send, and the recipient will then receive an email that has a link to either a link to the memory book or a link to the PDF for them to download, or a link to the book which has been condensed into video form, so then they can watch a video of it instead. This bit at the bottom just gives an option once the user has sent that, just to give them the option of continuing to engage with the project. Yeah, and that is pretty much the summary of those 3 journeys. So we've seen editing a current page, adding a new page, and a little bit around the potential and options for sharing, as well as some of the fringe features that are still kind of being discussed, such as a well-being area for kind of a bit of meditation and kind of introspection, and some additional customization options. I imagine throwing in there the option to change the the chapter colors. So we've got purple and red and green. I imagine it wouldn't be too much trouble to add an option to change those and customize those background colors, so the user feels like they're imparting a bit more of their personality onto it. I think that is pretty much all I have to show. I will pass back to Chris. I did see a couple of questions pop up, so it might be worth taking a moment just to address some of those. But if I do that, please.
Brilliant. Okay, so oops, let's get back into it. Okay, so thanks very much. I hope that's given you a flavour of what we've been working on. Obviously, it's not the full thing, as we said. We're going to start look a lot prettier moving on, but our next steps are to refine the workflows, to build out the one that we know we need to do, like what the actual website landing page might look like, how people might register and log in, which is something we really want to make as seamless as humanly possible. In the same way that most people don't realize they are logging in to Facebook, for instance. We want to make it that smooth. And where the possibility of people being able to build up more than one live story, and so to all these other works as well. And then when we've done this, and one of the things the questions that come up is the idea of music. We've talked about having music. We know how important music is for stimulating memories and for being really helping people to remember times and places. Obviously, one has to be relatively careful about this, as there are licensing issues. But music, of course, is very widely available, of all sorts. Is very widely available on things like YouTube. So we see that as being the primary way of bringing music in. To some extent, we allow people to share things and therefore become essentially publishers that we need to work on. But if we can find sources like YouTube where effectively they worry about the copywriting stuff and we just pull in stuff from there, that will avoid any sort of legal issues. So that's the primary use case we see at the moment. We have discussed the idea of people being able to upload music from their computers as well. And the other thing, a couple of questions have been asked, for instance, have been about the idea is that the primary use case for this book could be digital. We've concentrated on the tablet as being the primary use device. We tend to find that there's an immediacy in interacting with a tablet, especially for older people, that is far superior for them and for many people rather than using a mouse. And it's a nice size of being able to use things, but obviously to some extent we will make it work, make sure it works on all digital devices we possibly can do. We just think tablet is our primary target device at the moment. And in terms of linking between Know Your Place and Worcester Live Stories, well, we're busy talking to Know Your Place about how the best way to do this. But obviously, since Worcester Live Stories and Know Your Place are very much almost part of a joint project here, we want to make sure that we can easily copy out, if nothing else, links from images in Worcester Life Stories into the book, and also the wider web as well, so that we can actually people can really build something that's meaningful for them. So that's kind of the flavour at the moment. Obviously, we're going to refine all of this stuff, workshop a bit more internally, and then we'll start actually doing the painting, putting a little freeze on, and making sort of the aesthetic stuff, making it look pretty, and then so we're looking to do that probably I think for another workshop around mid-December sometime, and then. Yeah. So and then we'll be actually starting to code it all probably in the beginning of January, and probably we'd look to have some more interactions and user testing sort of going into February, and that kind of thing. So we're doing this. We're very much designing this user first, and then we'll tell the techies what they need to do. So as we had the idea of a family tree idea. I'm filling in the names that people may be adding to the story. This is a really nice idea and one we've considered as well. One of the things we want to try and do is the idea of people being able to go to have a profile where they fill in the bits that are meaningful, the things that are meaningful to them, like other people, their relatives, where they've lived, and then those can provide presets for going to search, various archives. So what we'd like to be able to do is, for instance, someone can say, when I was young, I grew up on Yardley Street, and then we can send a search into Know Your Place, and that would just automatically return some images from Yardley Street, which could then be saved into the user can save into their media library for use on their pages at a later date. So, there's lots of little refinements we're going to make around this, and lots of ideas that we have. Just wanted to be able to show you some of the basic interactions today, because obviously it's much easier to see things rather than just have me talk about them. So hopefully that's given you a flavour, and I'll hand back to Tash.
No, thank you very much. Lisa, I think you were about to do what I was about to ask, which was to stop sharing so that we could come back to the questions and take allow some conversation. But I think the thing I wanted to say in relation to the hard copy idea is, when we've spoken with Chris and Reese, is absolutely it's going on tablet, but it will be of a high enough quality. We spoke about this, didn't we, in terms of if you're printing it off. And I think, Chris, I hope you don't mind me saying, I think you've done it previously where you've printed sort of high quality books where you've done it yourself, and I guess that's what we were thinking about. So if you are, Sammy, I was thinking if you are working in a care home and people prefer the sort of tangible book, both of those are going to be an option and of the quality that is really meaningful. So you'll be able to do that. Is that fair? I think you put in the chat about it could go to the printers. So that's really going to be part of it. And I really like that idea, actually, in terms of the quality that people will be able to produce if they want to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Louise has written, it feels like quite a challenge to make this user-friendly across a spectrum of possible users. Almost worth having I want the simple one button at the beginning. Well, I think, Louisa, thank you. Sorry, Chris, you were about to answer, weren't you? I guess this is the point about today, is as part of these workshops, we started with what would people want. Chris and Reese have just started to show what it looks like, and this is the time now to say, are we getting it right for the people that we're thinking about? And I guess in particular, we are thinking about older people, people living with dementia, people that are digitally excluded, enabling that. So what did people think? Do we want to do a hands up option and maybe say, if you can, where you're from, if that's okay, and if it isn't, you don't have to. Louisa, did you want to start on that? I could see you moving.
Yeah, I was just Hi everyone. And I'm also a psychologist, but I'm working in education now at the university. But I've got a long interest in life story work, worked a lot in dementia care settings where knowing about somebody and having sensitive and sensible information about somebody just can entirely transform care. So that's where I'm coming from, but I'm also coming from the position of being a child with parents who are very internet savvy and would perhaps feel that they could manage the kind of interface we're talking about today. So to me, it almost feels like it would be good to be able to have an option for folk to get put off, because it's such a brilliant idea. The opportunities here are fantastic. I'm so excited by it. When I saw your tweet about it, I was just, this is really good. I'd love to find out more about it and see what else can happen. And of course, the research possibilities are huge, and the evaluation and everything will be really exciting to see.
Are you off for it?
Yeah, I am.
I think as well. You asked a question about, I want the simple one. One of the things that we've much talked about is not just someone starts with a completely blank canvas, because you end up with essentially the paradox of choice. God, where do I start? Where do I start? So the idea of having a kind of framework for building, of perhaps differing levels of complexity, but the idea we start with, say, childhood and growing up and first job or whatever it is that we keep them quite simple, but it gives people, it gives users the a kind of framework so they can think about things, they know where to start, and then they can make it more complex so they feel up to it. But obviously, you know, they at least have some mental stimulation for as I say, just starting. It's really important, because we all know it's like sign up to a service and you just go, okay, I'll go away and never use it. So yeah.
I guess I was thinking about, because I'm one of the sad sacks that's just bought themselves a Nintendo Switch in lockdown. And what I really liked about it was the fact that it tells you right from the beginning how to work it.
Yeah.
So and I'm technically useless. So I needed to know every single step of turn this button on now, press this, if you want, you know, and that to me, I wondered if there could be something, some audio that would help people through that initial process of understanding that if you touch or click on a photograph, you're doing something with it, because even that is quite unusual for some people.
Yeah. I mean, there's one of the things that we discussed it quite a lot at the last workshop as well, was the idea of being able to guide people through. So we have the sort of the simple interactions, but also actually that when someone first logs in or first starts to build something, we actually have little labels that pop up saying, this is how you add a new page, or this is how you add a photo. So you know, making it self-guiding, we shouldn't have to be sort of doing manual training on this, obviously. But yes, giving people an overview, that's as small as vein of video, and then being able to walk them through as they do things, and that's very much in the scope.
Yeah. Anyway, I think it's brilliant though.
I think Sheena wanted to come in and ask a question based on Chris's and Louisa's point there.
I mean, I think just around that kind of sort of navigating through it, and whether and sort of going back to Sue's question as well about the sort of, you know, pulling things in from resources like Know Your Place, and whether there's an option in the various sections. So, for instance, I don't know, growing up that chapter, whether there's the opportunity there to have sort of search prompts. So you might want to search for the pub that you went out to as an older teenager, or a dance hall, or whether there's an option to actually have prompts for the sorts of things that you might want to put in at that point.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
So just to clarify, I guess there was something in terms of what people were saying is that having something that guides someone through right from the, so when you first open Know Your Life Stories, I'm now blending both platforms, sorry, with the Life Stories platform, we've said about obviously having that video, and then Louisa, was your point about if you were on a page that there was audio, so if somebody was struggling with the written word, that there was a audio at that point. Just to clarify what you were thinking.
I think I was thinking like the teaching bit of it, that the learning how to use it in the first place, I think was where I was at. I can just remember, because I'm from way back before there was computers around and internet around, and it is, I think when you're really used to it, you forget what it's like right at the beginning when you don't know that much about it. And I think most older people probably, especially because of lockdown, actually have learned lots of skills they wouldn't have had. But it's just to have that option to be able to click on the do you want instruction on this or whatever, so that you can, you know, someone friendly saying, you know, we're not all great at this, but if you press this button, you'll find that this happens. Like, you know, just something like really, like, that's what always in my mind, really.
No, that's really, sorry, Chris.
No, that's fine. I mean, I think also that, you know, what we want to try and do is to have not just at the beginning, but help, or the option to bring in help continuously, because after all, we're talking about, you know, whilst carers and staff might also be able to help, we're talking about people who, might well have cognitive impairments, you know, so we need to be able to help them throughout the journey. If they go away and come back again, they might have forgotten exactly what they need to be able to do. So, you know, being able to help them not just at the beginning but continuously is really important to making this a success.
Yeah, I really like that idea because it enables the person to continue to have control, as you say, as much as possible, which is in terms of the research that you were doing. And I like Sheena's idea of having potentially prompts in terms of being able to access that. I can see you nodding, Barry, that fits for you. What does everybody else think? I was just thinking, sorry, Sammy, I know I pick on you and sort of, John, I'm looking, what do other people think about what's been suggested so far in terms of help or how those initial bits look? As Chris and Reese were both saying, though, is we're not at the point of the actual look at it. This is more around how it's going to function. I'm not using the right technical language, forgive me on that. But just to be clear on that's the next stage, isn't it, Chris, in terms of it just the painting, as you said, yeah.
Tash, I think it looks really good. There aren't many clicks. It's quite simple. It's, you know, the navigation seems easy to use. So yeah, it's really exciting that it's got to this stage that, you know, it looks like a book, you know, which is good. And I think in a care home setting, I'm sure Barry would agree with me. When you're sitting with somebody with dementia, when we have our physical books, but this is a live beast, if you like, that, you know, we can take them down different routes, different roads, and really stimulate conversation and memory, which, I'm really, it looks good. It looks great.
On that, there's a question that's come through from Facebook that says, Alan Gormley, he said, looks like a very good idea. Are you expecting those with dementia to manage the book themselves and have it managed for them by a relative? This will help define the level of usability required. Yeah.
I think, did everybody hear that question? Yeah, and I think very much and it fits with in terms of what Sammy was saying, is that we want to make this as accessible as possible, which is why Chris and Reese have actually, I hope this is okay to say, but I know that you've been doing research in the background in terms of thinking about keeping platforms not cluttered, thinking about the size of the buttons. So a lot of, they're not doing themselves justice in terms of what I've been looking at to make this as accessible as possible, to enable people to engage, really. Is that fair, Chris and Reese?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, you know, it's one of those things where as a company have been doing accessible sites for a very long time now. I know accessibility is certainly one of those passions, and this really leverages that a lot. So, you know, there's lots of things where we want to be able to ensure that, you know, when we start to go into the painting, for instance, we are using things that have a high enough color contrast, that buttons are large and easy to hit, and usually labeled as well, clearly, rather than just being icons. And you know, we're trying to avoid things like dragging and dropping, for instance, as a user interface thing. All of these things, we're trying to take account of all of the possible accessibility issues that we can think of. So, I mean, you know, we've been doing accessibility for a long time, but I don't think I've been quite. You know, we've had such a challenge, which is really exciting. It's great.
There's a couple more points that come up here in the chat. One from you, John, which is a good question actually. Once complete, can a downloaded version be used to take and show in an area without Wi-Fi? Which I think is the case, isn't it?
Yeah, Chris and Reese, do you want to answer that, just in terms of making sure that?
Just to sort of go on to that, Sammy responded to that as well, to say it'd be great if you could work offline, maybe to other text areas, then upload later. I just thought I'd bring those two together.
My chat's not been updating, so thanks.
I see that. I mean, yes, I make stuff offline as well. I mean, the whole idea of the export is to make it available offline. You know, at least in the video, because you can just then add it locally, and the same with the PDF idea as well. So it's there to look at if you aren't online. I just try and make that accessible. Can we have text that then syncs up later online? It's certainly something we want to look at. It's technically possible. So yeah, we're trying to take account of all of that, because obviously, being online is patchy in many places. So yeah, absolutely, and it's a really good question though.
Thing that I liked that Reece said earlier as well was the auto save, so people didn't lose it. We were talking earlier about having lost work and being in tears. So just that idea that, sorry, just sharing that personal information. Sorry, but I was really excited by that idea that you've built that in. That if people are doing it online, that it's automatically saving and people won't lose that.
Yeah, I think it's really important, because otherwise people do forget. It may be. I mean, there was an email program, which is Mailchimp. At one point, some years ago, they made it so everything auto saved, but they still had to add in a save button because people got worried that it wasn't saving. So we may find ourselves having to do that anyway, but we'd actually just save in the background in any case. But
Can I put that out to everyone, actually, because with you saying that, Chris, in fairness, not knowing the research, but just from a personal point of view, I think I could see myself doing that. I haven't got somewhere to save it, and then if I'm not able to hold on to that auto save, that would be something that could potentially trigger worry. Does anybody else say?
Yes, I agree with that. Yes.
It's partly why we put the fit button in.
Yes.
So you can actually say that, okay, yes, I'm definitely finished, but at the same time, if you don't hit it, then you don't lose it.
Yeah.
There's a few more bits coming through. So there was one from Louisa that asked about whether there'll be technical support, which I see you answered partly there, Chris, saying hopefully that they wouldn't need it, but there will be some basic support and supporting materials. And I just wanted to say about the supporting materials, because obviously part of the project is to have the what we're calling links to life skills, which will be basically an area of supporting information and probably some tutorial videos and that kind of thing, which hopefully will help people there.
And we're also, sorry, excuse me, Paul Giveaway and John, in terms of digital champions that are out there in terms of helping to support people at the same time, so that there will be the materials that Chris and Reece are doing, the Worcester Life Packs, but also people, that are on today that are saying in terms of helping to support people to be able to use. So I just wanted to acknowledge John and Paul in terms of what you're bringing to the project as well. Question?
Yeah, so there are a couple of other things around look and feel. So John, you've mentioned, can we remember to look at the tabs for colourblind users and users with colour ID difficulties?
Chris, would you be able to answer? I realise people have been responding in the chat, but I'm aware you may be having the same thing that I have, which is it's not updating so well, and at least it allows that conversation for people that can't, who may be watching it live, who might not be able to see that.
I can field the question about the colorblind options. I've seen other solutions for this being mainly around the use of patterns for separation. So it could be a case of having a setting. You saw in that yellow section. It's more kind of administrative settings area. There could be options in there for just turning on and off a background pattern behind those chapters to further differentiate.
Yeah, and I think that we can have again sort of things to make sure that the colours are sufficiently different. And so it's also put in a question about enabling large print. Well, the wonderful thing about digital is we can make that explicit. I find myself, I read a lot of ebooks these days, and being able to increase the size of it is, alas, I'm getting older, really useful.
I like there's a question from Greg in terms of giving it the feeling of a book, like turning the page at the bottom. before Chris, before you answer that, I was just curious as to how other people, you know, is that something that you think actually I'd really like to see? Oh, lots of thumbs up. Yeah. So Chris, then over to you in terms of whether that's possible, or Reese, sorry.
Well, actually, Reese did actually talk to me a couple of, was it yesterday, day before, Reese, when we were talking about, we found a library that allows us to do sort of the page turning effect.
Tuesday.
Yeah. I mean, I'm normally ambivalent about this kind of stuff, you know, what's called skeuomorphic stuff, because when it is digital, we don't necessarily want that kind of effect. But if people think that's a good effect to have, then we can always, you know, we can always put that in or make it an option. It just makes it, but it's, I think it's, sometimes it can be something of a distraction to have a really sort of, you know, it's a page-like experience. But you do see occasionally when you have these things where you have a little corner flips up occasionally just to show you that you can turn the page, and I think that kind of prompt is a nice way of doing things.
I think maybe.
Sorry to interrupt you, Reese, but I was thinking about in terms of when we beta test, that might be something that, as you say, once we're able to play around with the system. So
yeah, the primary, just with the layout as we have at the moment, would offer a fairly easy placement to progress in the book, turning the page to progress. Going back a page features a slightly more difficult placement for that go back turned up corner, just in the way the menu comes down the side, and you might have a couple of interactive points a bit close together. But yeah, it's something we can think about and maybe test with a user base.
can I ask a question in terms of what you were saying for the music and from YouTube? So if I upload, forgive me if this is too far along, but if we're uploading a music video, would that be able to play behind the book? So that would be playing as my video. Yeah.
We need to look to it, to be honest. I think we need to, it's something, the whole idea of music, we do need to look into a bit more, Tash, to be honest. Also, you know, what happens if, you know, because you don't want to, so if it's playing in the background, if your book's exported as a video, for instance, because there's a defined time period, then if your book takes 10 minutes to go through and the song takes 4, do we just keep playing it round again? It'd be like stuck in a lift. So I think that's something we need to you know, think about. And I say, you know, it's just because we need to think about how we deal with music, just because, you know, no one wants to get sued.
No. And the bit that you were saying in terms of, are you, and just looking to the audience really, with Chris's point, we're thinking about that. How would people, if you were able to have the option of music, how would you like that on the book? Does that make sense? So that can help Chris and Reese be able to.
So when I was thinking about it, I was thinking about you know, when you had the tab down the side of well-being, I was just thinking about I don't know, something like what makes me smile, or steps to happiness, or something like that we could be thinking about taking forward from when we're able to understand our environment and we can interact with people. So that can go right through with us potentially to a care setting where people don't know us so well, but that there might be a page that might have memorabilia that didn't need much explaining, but that kind of appealed to a particular sense and was very reminiscent, but it didn't need text and it didn't need pictures necessarily. So that's why I brought it up. But obviously there'd be loads of uses for music.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and that's the reason that I was asking, because I guess I've spoken before in terms of again sharing personal information, but I got married to Elton John's Your Song, and Chris is going to tell me off for saying that. But in terms of, you know, potentially having that music, and we know about the power of music, how we yeah, it's just being able to think about what did other people think about that and how you could introduce it. And I think, Sammy, it was coming back to the thing that you were saying in terms of how interactive you can make that.
Well, I think it's one of the things we could think about, for instance. So there's a lot of this, as we talk about more about this, a lot of it depends on, how familiar people might be with other technologies. If you're putting the book together for your father or something, that might be an easy thing. But for instance, the ability to embed a Spotify playlist of argument, I think, be something that we could look at. I think that would be quite easy to do. So it plays, as you're going through the book, you've got the playlist playing. So I think there's lots of options we can look at that would allow us to do that.